Now I turn to what I think is the most serious blow to the classical approach to the ordinal view on economics, preference reversals, discovered by psychologists. As so often, violation of things are more first discovered by psychologists. This also in the early 70s. So far, I think you already saw a kind of problem, but they were not, well, you could accommodate, live with it. But this preference reversal was so much a blow really to the heart of the ordinal approach. I think this, more than anything else, opened the field up to the understanding that we need more general models. This was the ultimate plague for the classical model, so to say. For Mr. Spock, we really need to go behavioral. Let me explain. There is available choice option is dollar prospect. This is lottery's decision on the risk, lotteries for money. Dollar prospect give you with probability 0.31, $16. So the probability is not so good, but quite big amount of money in this context, otherwise nothing. There's a P prospect. It gave you only $4, but with probability 0.97. So the dollar prospect has a better dollar amount. The P prospect has a better probability. And subjects are asked to choose between the two. If you can choose, what would you choose? And I am not going to ask you what you would choose, because with economics students, they are too much trained for expected value that this does not work. This is no. So I'll just tell you what the majority preferences are without asking for your preferences. Anyway, they did something else. They presented those two, you saw those prospects before. They presented them in isolation and asked the subject for the monetary value. So for each prospect, they asked, how much money is that prospect worth to you? What is the monetary value of that prospect for you? So your subjective monetary value. And the findings, of course, the paradox is coming, otherwise I wouldn't tell you. Indirect choice. Most people prefer the P prospect. They take it as almost certainty and they prefer that to the risk of the dollar prospect. However, when monetary valuation comes, people assign the higher monetary value not to the preferred P prospect, but to the dollar prospect. That is weird. If you say something has higher value, then why don't you prefer it? Formally speaking, you already feel that this is weird. Formally speaking, we can derive violation of transitivity from it. Let me just go through it once. The dollar prospect is equally good as its monetary value. That is strictly greater than the monetary value of the P prospect. That's what we find. That's equivalent to the pre-prospect. But that one is strictly preferred to the dollar prospect. That's what we find in the choice. So then we have this cycle and we have violation of transitivity. But surely weird things are going on. This is not any normal preference in any normal sense. Well, reactions came and economists couldn't believe. They said, this is too weird. People can do dumb things, we've seen it, but this is just, preference doesn't exist, come on. So there were two well-known Greta and Plot, especially Plot, a famous experimental economist. They published a beautiful paper in 1979, and they wrote, this paper reports the results of a series of experiments designed to discredit the psychologist's works as applied to economics. They did a very careful job. They used real incentives so that the subject are motivated, very good explanations of everything. They said, if we do our job well, such weird things will not happen. But to their big surprise, they did the experiment. They completely found the preference reversal that the psychologist had already signaled. So they had to admit the psychologists are just right. This is really happening. So that was, and by the way, it's very nice that they wrote it honestly like that. So it was a very influential paper. And I think this, more than anything else, made people aware the honest approach. We need to loosen up on our assumptions, our classical models with all this rationality. There's too much deviating from it. This went to the heart of rationality in economics. Not muscular or rational, you have a transitive preference ratio. That's already violated. I think this really turned the table. Then time got ready. This happened in the early 1970s, and then came the intermezzo period of a little later, and then behavioral came. Anyway, some possible action, of course, as always, behavior economists have done all kinds of studies to see what is going on psychologically, what explains these irrationalities. One thing that plays a role in, so yeah, I repeat the choice objects, what is called scale compatibility. That is one of there are several things going on here. Scale compatibility says in this situation, when subjects are asked to determine the monetary value, they are thinking, oh, I must give a reply in terms of money. They're thinking money too much. They over-focus on the money dimension. They ignore too much the probability dimension. So then they say that the dollar bet has $16. Oh, big money amount. I like it. And the P bet is less good in that regard. So this scale compatibility says there's a bias going on, that the dollar bet is over-evaluated. So if scale compatibility with the right explanation, then in the monetary evaluation, things are going wrong. But there are several other, there are many effects going on, and several effects say no, not in the monetary evaluation, but in the choice situation, things are going on, like lexicographic choice heuristics, all these things. So a lot going on. But this is one explanation of why we are finding preference reversals among many others. And again, we don't have the time to discuss it very much. But surely the preference reversals are a smoking gun that are really things going on different than classical preference theory. Many biases of the same seriousness have now been found for very fundamental properties. So really, we need to loosen up. Now I turn to the next topic, emotions in game theory, where again, the evidence was found. That will be in the next recording.